Time as the new Biden administration finds its feet in the region, trying to revive, as we heard, the Iran nuclear agreement, as well as recalibrate relations with Iran's arch-rival Saudi Arabia. The US is due to release today a declassified intelligence report into the murder of the Saudi critic Jamal Khashoggi in 2018. A report that's expected to say that the Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman knew about the murder plot or even approved it. Well, ahead of its release, President Biden spoke to King Salman of Saudi Arabia on the phone on Thursday, but few concrete details of what was said were released. I've been speaking to Salman Alansari, founder of the Saudi American Public Relations Affairs Committee, set up to promote US-Saudi relations. He's currently in Riyadh. And I asked him first, was the Khashoggi case specifically mentioned during the call?
Definitely it was mentioned because I have seen that both statements somehow spoke about the human rights things.
I'm curious, though, how worried is the government in Riyadh about the declassification of the intelligence report into Mr. Khashoggi's murder, which we're expecting today? That must be a major preoccupation.
I'm not very sure of if the government is really concerned about this. The former Secretary of State, Mike Pompeo, emphasized that he has read every word of the report and came out to this mentioned conclusion.
That's what he said, but there are other people who've read it who say that it points the finger squarely at the Crown Prince. I mean, Senator Chris Murphy, for example, a Democratic senator, he said, and the quote was, "There is no way that murder happened without the say-so of the Crown Prince."
All the time we are receiving this kind of rhetoric from so many parties, etc. But in this particular case, the court system in the kingdom has said its last words by ruling with a death sentence for the 5 direct involved people in this heinous murder of Khashoggi. Saudi Arabia does not have anything to hide from, so that's why I'm not sure if government in the kingdom has any kind of concern with that regard, because we know that the Saudi-US relationship is too big to break.
It's not just human rights in general terms. I mean, it's the murder of an American resident. That's what this is about, someone who was killed, and no one seems to really believe that the killing could have happened without the say-so of people at the very top.
Yeah, I think it's the problem of the people who do not want to believe that.
Well, Mr. Biden called Saudi Arabia a pariah, that he wanted it to be cast as a pariah when he was a candidate.
Mr. Trump has said the same thing during his elections, and he said worse things than that. And then when he got into office, the actions were completely different than what they have said. When they are in office, they know what to say and they know how to act. Saudi Arabia is the heart of the Arab and Muslim world, and it will not allow anybody to point fingers in a very negative manner against Saudi Arabia. It's fine if the media wants to take its role on demonizing the kingdom and its people and its leadership, but if the government takes a responsibility on blaming Saudi, on putting Saudi Arabia somehow in the corner, then Saudi Arabia will know how to react.
All right, that sounds like a bit of a threat to me.
Not necessarily. It's just a fact. It's diplomacy between countries.
Salman Alansari speaking to me earlier from Riyadh. Well, let's get a view from the...
Thank you so much, Mike, for having me. I think there were a lot of speculations, accusations, and investigations of this particular case. But based on the released CIA report, there were no one single substantial evidence that can link the Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman to the killing order of Mr. Khashoggi. It was an intelligence assessment-based report rather than an evidence-based one. And the report repeated words such as probably, suggests, and we assess. And the court system in the kingdom has said its last words by ruling with the death sentence for the 5 direct involved people in the heinous murder of Mr. Khashoggi, which then got a different ruling of 20 years prison sentences after the Khashoggi family pardoned them from being executed based on the practiced justice system in the kingdom. And based on my point of view, I think human rights politicization is not at the interest of anyone. Weaponizing human rights and other governments' mistakes is in this field to advance political agendas is a betrayal of the core concept of human rights. And I think the kingdom can play the same game and pointing fingers at the US for suppressing and silencing and jailing the journalist Assange, and for the torture and killing of Iraqi prisoners in Abu Ghraib in Iraq, or in the infamous Guantanamo Bay prison, or for the institutionalized racism against African Americans and other minorities, including Native Americans, and the list goes on. But the kingdom respects the sovereignty of other nations that may have different systems and different internal challenges that can't be solved by pointing fingers and by taking a claimed high moral stance. So that's how I see the whole thing. But overall, I believe on the U.S.-Saudi relationship, and it's too big to break up. It's a very important alliance to push back against the radical Iranian regime and its militias, and to fight terrorism, and to stabilize the energy markets in the world. So I think...
Let me ask you, you say it's an important alliance between these two countries, and Biden basically said that in his call with the king. He says he's going to make the bilateral relationship as strong and transparent as possible, but it's definitely different from the Trump years. How would you describe the relationship between Washington and Riyadh today?
Yeah, I think the relationship is still very strong. Let's not forget the fact that the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia is considered to be the golden key for solving many issues, not only in the Middle East, but also in North Africa and the Arab and Muslim world. It's the heart of the Arab and Muslim world. It's the custodian of the two holy mosques, where more than 1.7 billion people, Muslims around the world, face Mecca for their prayers. Saudi Arabia is not only a spiritual leader, but also the central bank of energy in the world, and it is surrounded by the three most important straits in the world: Strait Bab el-Mandeb and Hormuz and the Suez Canal. We are speaking of a country that is moving so fast to advance its systems, to advance its human rights. And let's not forget the fact that in 2020, the World Bank initiated a report of Women and Law that says Saudi Arabia was the biggest reformer in the field of women's rights. That's huge, but it wasn't picked up by the American and international media, unfortunately.